everyone. So today I'm going to talk about my favorite fashion trends throughout the past century. I love vintage styles. I think there's so many great iconic looks that came from each century. And I think there's a lot of things that we can translate into today's fashion, which is really cool. It's really neat to see things that were iconic in the day that we can bring forward with us now. Oh, it's amazing. Okay, so first I'm starting off with the 20s. The 20s were called the Roaring 20s because it was right after World War I, and people were feeling happy and they were feeling prosperous and they were feeling like it's time to party. And so that's what happened. And that's the introduction of the flapper dress, which was great for dancing because it had a lot of movement and fringe and lace and fun to it. And I love that dress. I think it's really cool. Not everybody can wear it because it's kind of better suited for girls with less curves and hips, but it's still a really fun, iconic dress of the time. Also, I really loved the cloche hats that were those tight-fitting, close-to-the-face hats, and they really just kind of defined the unique hairstyle, the bob, and the little ring finger curls that they had during the time, and it's quite an interesting look. It was also the time of Art Deco when gold and black and silver were a big thing. I loved the look. It can look a little cheap sometimes, but I think if it's done well, it looks really classy and really amazing. It's also the time of pearls and lace. I loved the long pearl necklaces, and I love the look of the lace. It's very feminine, and it's very moody and kind of mysterious at the same time, and I loved it. And it's also the 20s. When you think about like iconic Hollywood silent movies, things like that, then you definitely think of the 20s. That's when movies were really beginning to get into their swing, become really experimental, and I think if you're going to think of old-fashioned, iconic Hollywood, you definitely think of the 20s. And the makeup also was kind of this smoky, moody, dark, mysterious look, but it wasn't conventional. It wasn't necessarily beautiful. It was odd and it was different. And I think the 20s were a great time to reveal that experimental side of fashion. So next up is the 30s. The 30s were kind of known as the dirty 30s, and we had a pretty big recession that happened, but that doesn't mean the fashion died. In contrast, there was a lot of interesting things that came out of the 30s. Surprisingly, for the rich people, a lot of furs came out, and I like the classy way that furs look. I don't think that we should use furs. So faux fur all the way, but it looked really classy and elegant, minus the fact that there was like a dead animal's head attached to your outfit. But I liked the way it looked. It really spruced things up, and it looked good, minus the fact that there were animals. So if we're going to bring that back, which I think totally would work, faux fur all the way. And also need and necessity, and because more women were going into the workplace and just kind of discovering more fashion of their own, they began to wear the sailor trousers that men usually wore. And they looked amazing. But the sailor trousers looked amazing on women. It brought out their sexy little waists, and then it kind of flowed down to almost like a dress, but they were wearing the trousers. And I loved the finger curls. These things are so attractive and flattering, but I think that they're a horrible beast to manage. I can't imagine how many curls and how many pins and how many hot irons and how many burns those girls had to endure throughout their hair doing experience. But they look so good. They look endearing. I love them. I think it's the classic look. Beautiful black and white right there. The 40s saw a great change for women. It was the end of World War II, and a lot of women had to go back to the workforce because a lot of their husbands or boyfriends or whoever went to war. And now women were like, you know what? We can do this. We can earn a living and we can be working ladies. And so a lot of the attire changed. It became a lot more shirt and blouse dresses, a lot more jacket dresses, and those are gorgeous. I love them. You know, sometimes out of necessity comes great fashion. And so the 40s definitely had that. I know my dad was born in the 40s, and looking at pictures of my grandmother, it's gorgeous, just I love it. I love the outfits. I love the hair. I love the hats. I love the makeup. And my grandma just looked stunning. And my grandpa too. He looked so fetching in his trousers and button-up shirts and things like that. It was very, very attractive time. The 40s also had really great shoes. I loved the shoes. They had kind of a little bit more of a rounded toe to them and some not incredibly high heels, but they were cute heels, comfortable, and they just looked good with pretty much every outfit. I loved them. And also the hair waves. I mean, check this out. They had beautiful swooping waves, and then they also tucked it up with hats and things like that, but just, that's when hat pins were in. You could wear like fashionable accessories. They had a lot of brooches during the time. Just gorgeous. And then the lip shades. Mwah! They had great dramatic lip shades that were in, and I think it was a time where women wanted to show their strength. And so they showed that in many different aspects of their lives, including their lip shade. A darker lip shade, a bold lip shade. It definitely says something. It's not just like, oh, she's sweet and she's ladylike. Bold lip shade says, hey now, read my lips. I'm ready to do some business. It's kind of weird. Anyway, 40s. Good time. The 1950s. This is probably my favorite era of the last century. Everyone was classy, everyone looked beautiful, their makeup was amazing. This was also the time of Marilyn Monroe when she was flourishing as the 1950s sex symbol. And it's also the time when we start out with Mad Men, which, just watching that, the costumes and the makeup, oh my gosh, let's go back. Minus all of the anti-women's rights and stuff. Let's go back just fashion-wise, okay? What don't I love about the 1950s fashion? I don't know where to start because I love everything. I love the slim-waisted dresses that came out and either belled out or did pencil skirts. That was also the time of like the grease lightning kind of thing. That's when it started, the rockabilly look. And the pencil skirts, so form-fitting and so attractive. The 50s really fit the woman's figure. It was gorgeous. That's also when you have Audrey Hepburn wearing those really cute tapered capris and trousers and just looking stunning. I loved her. Oh my gosh. And the shoes. Actually, I really like the shoes from the 20s up to the 50s. The heels that they had, there's like the kitten heel, but then there's the really high heel, and then the pointed toe is so classy. And they had fun colors as well, especially going up to the 50s and even into the 60s. But the 50s, it's just they hit it. They rocked everything. And you got this beautiful hair going on. Everything looked so sophisticated yet sensual for the woman. I think the 50s was a great time. I also think that, sure, could have made a lot further advances. It's also when we had like Tupperware come out and the microwave and canned goods, which some of those things are good, and then some of those things were like a really terrible idea. But fashion-wise, A+. Oh my gosh, love the stuff. It's my favorite. I would actually wear this out in public if it didn't look like I was wearing a wig in public. Oh well, dreams. Hey baby, welcome to the 60s. Whoa, yeah. Yeah, so this is the 60s. The 60s was super iconic for so many things. As far as entertainment, there was the Beatles. That's when we had Sonny and Cher. That's when Twiggy was super popular, hence my Twiggy-esque eye makeup. That's when you had the hippie movement. We had Vietnam War, lots of things going on. And out of that came a lot of interesting fashions. My favorite were the eyeliners. The eyeliner was crazy. Even like Audrey Hepburn, who's super classy, she had crazy eyeliner for the 60s. And that's what brought out the extravagant and exciting cat eye, which is really popular today. It's a little more modernized now, but it's very iconic, very cool. It's also when the go-go boots came out and the colorful tights and the mini skirt and the mini dress. We became a little more Scandalous in the 60s. We showed a lot more skin than we had, especially in the 50s, coming out of that, where it was very conservative. Now we're showing legs, and we're showing cleavage, and we're showing arms, and we're showing breastises half the time. Scandalous time, but it was a new discovery for America. And there was also a lot of British influence. A lot of the bands and the models and the top icons for that time were British. And I think the British at that time were a little bit more free flowing than the Americas, and that's what was very appealing to everyone. And there was also a really cool thing with black and whites. It seemed like the black and white color blocking was really popular then, and I love that time period where they have bold shapes with the bold lines and it's all black and white, and it's really popping, it's really catching, and was really kind of a fun look. And then you had the 70s, the time of the disco and major bell bottoms and huge, ridiculous glasses that were nerdy but so cool. I mean, hipsters love them today. It's awesome. And it was a time of a lot of rust-colored shirts, like orange and yellow and things like that. But what I did love about the 70s is I loved the bell-bottom trousers. I thought they looked amazing. And especially if you were slim up top, it really just continued this really cool angle and line about your figure. And then there was a time too when you would couple it with like a tight sweater up top, kind of like what I got on right now. You can't see it. And that was also kind of the beginning of the boho style, where you have like the leather fringe vests. And they had that in the 60s too, but it was like very boho chic at that time. You had the big sunnies and you would smoke a pipe. It was lots of fun things happening. That was like hipster central, was the 70s. My dad was like the OG hipster. He was really cool. The 80s. Oh gosh, the 80s. I feel like that is where history's fashion totally went downhill as far as actual wearable fashion. Sure, there were some like crazy icons like Madonna. She was nuts, and there was a lot of those kind of things that came out of the 80s, like color everywhere. Everything was bright, primary colors. Everyone was like wearing crazy hair, like, and mullets. What the hell? Nobody wears mullets. That's a bad choice no matter who you are and what decade you're in. But the 80s weren't all bad. They did give us oversized sweatshirts and leggings in a million different colors with high-top shoes. That's pretty much what I liked from the 80s. Now, my boyfriend would disagree and say that the 80s was one of the best times for fashion, especially for men. And the flashy, I don't know, everything, cars, ties, suits, I don't know, everything was flashy in the 80s, especially Florida 80s. Oh, hey, woo, look at Mickey and Minnie. Yeah, so 80s. And then there were the 90s. And I don't think that the 90s really provided us with much, except I will say that I really do like the vamp look that came out of the 90s. The 90s was full of iconic things like Clueless and the Spice Girls and like PC choppy highlighted hair. And none of that was great. But the vamp look was pretty cool, and then the tattoo chokers are kind of cool. They're kind of in right now. I like it. And plaid shirts. I can dig it. It's cool. But, I mean, remember like the floral vests that people would wear? What are people thinking? Oh my gosh. And then that's also when grunge was really in too, and it's like, bleh. I don't know about that. That's pretty nuts. I can't handle the 90s. Bad choices were made. Brr.